The wind howled across the open plains like a wounded beast that night, rattling the shutters of Jack Coulter's cabin as if the storm itself wanted in. The old cowboy sat by the dying fire, hat tipped low, a bottle of whiskey untouched beside him. He'd spent years alone since the war. No one came up this far into the hills except the lost, the desperate or the damned. Then came the knock, a frantic, uneven pounding that sliced through the silence and echoed through his chest. Jack rose slowly, his hand brushing the rifle by the wall before he pulled the latch. The door swung open, and in the orange glow of the oil lamp stood a woman, barefoot, bleeding, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Her hair clung wet to her face, her clothes torn and muddy, eyes wide with a terror no words could describe. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking, "take me away before dawn or they'll kill me." For a moment, Jack thought it was a ghost come calling from his past, but then the thunder rolled and the scent of pine and blood filled the air. "Who's after you?" he asked, his voice low, steady. She shook her head, clutching the doorframe for balance. "Men from the town. Her breath caught," eyes darting toward the woods beyond. "They burned my house. My brother's dead. They said I'd be next." Jack's heart sank. He'd heard rumors, ranchers fighting over land, a girl accused of something she didn't do, justice twisted by greed. "You best come in," he said, stepping aside. She hesitated, glancing back into the dark as if she expected the night to swallow her whole. Then she stepped inside, and with a heavy hand, Jack bolted the door. The fire crackled weakly as she sank into the chair near the hearth. Jack wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, trying not to notice how her hands shook or the bruises hidden beneath the dirt. "What's your name?" he asked. "Clara," she whispered. "Clara Mae Dawson." Jack nodded slowly. The name hit something deep inside him. Her family once owned land near Red Hollow before the ranchers took it. He'd seen too much of that kind of cruelty, men using the law to break whoever stood in their way. Clara's eyes darted to the window, where the storm had quieted into a strange stillness. "They'll come for me," she said. They said they'd wait till dawn. Jack could see it in her eyes. She wasn't lying. Outside, the forest was too quiet, the kind of silence that hides danger. He poured her a cup of water and watched as she drank with trembling hands. "You came a long way to find trouble, miss," he muttered. "I didn't come to find trouble," she replied, her voice trembling with fear and fire both. "Trouble found me." As the hours passed, Clara told him everything. How her father's land was stolen by a rich cattle baron named Royce Tanner. How her brother tried to fight back and was shot in cold blood. How they said Clara knew too much. And the sheriff, bought and paid for, gave her till dawn to run. "They won't stop," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "They'll hang me just to make sure the story dies." Jack leaned back, his jaw tight. He'd faced killers before, but something about the girl's voice cut through his old armor. Maybe it was the courage behind her fear. Maybe it was the way she looked at him like he was her last chance. "You can't stay here," he said. "If they know where you've been, they'll come with guns." She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. "Then take me away before dawn," she whispered again, "please." Jack stared into the flames, weighing his choices. He'd sworn to keep to himself, to never pick a side again after the war. But the way Clara looked at him, with trust, with desperation, stirred something buried deep. The wind outside shifted, carrying the faint sound of horses. He stood suddenly, checking his rifle, his coat, his horse outside the back. "We ride in 10 minutes, he said, his voice cold but certain. "You ride quiet and hold tight." Clara blinked in disbelief. "You're helping me?" Jack looked at her, his eyes dark with something fierce. "Ain't about helping. It's about not letting the wrong men win again." He doused the fire, slung his rifle over his shoulder, and opened the back door to the biting cold. The forest stretched endless before them, black and whispering. "Before dawn," he said, glancing at the horizon's faint glow. "We'll be ghosts by the time they wake." As they mounted and disappeared into the dark woods, the cabin stood silent once more, only the swinging lamp left to mark that something brave had begun. But deep inside, Jack knew running was only the beginning, the cold bit at their faces. As Jack and Clara rode through the pines, moonlight spilling through the branches like silver fire, the forest was alive with sound, the echo of distant hooves, the low cry of an owl, and the rush of wind whispering through the trees. Clara held tight to Jack's waist, her heart pounding in time with the gallop beneath her. Every breath she took felt borrowed, every moment a fragile promise of survival. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, men were tracking. "They're close," Jack muttered, eyes scanning the ridges ahead. "We've got till first light before they cut us off near the river." Clara nodded, too afraid to speak. Her hands were numb, her face streaked with tears and mud. But deep inside she felt something strange, a flicker of safety, of trust. The man she'd met only hours ago now carried her life in his hands, and somehow she believed in him. When they reached the ridge, Jack slowed the horse, pulling them into the cover of fallen pines. He dismounted, listening to the distant thunder of hooves. "They're splitting up," he said, crouching low. "They'll try to surround us before dawn." Clara swallowed hard. "What do we do?" He turned to her, eyes steady. "We make them think we're headed for the river, but we go west into the old mines. No one follows there. Too many ghosts." The plan was madness, but it was their only chance. As they moved through the thick brush, Clara couldn't stop thinking of her brother, of the fire, of everything she'd lost. And yet, in the quiet strength of this stranger beside her, she found something she hadn't felt in months: hope. Hours later, when the first glow of dawn touched the treetops, they reached the mouth of an abandoned mine. Jack helped her down, his hand firm and warm despite the cold. "We'll rest here," he said. "They won't come this far. Not till the sun's up." But before he could finish, a rifle cracked through the morning stillness, the bullet slamming into the rock beside them. "They found us," Clara cried. Jack grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper inside the cave. The echoes of gunfire bounced off the walls, dust raining down as the men outside shouted orders. "You can't fight them all," Clara said. Jack's eyes hardened. Wasn't planning to. He tore a piece of cloth from his coat, wrapped it around his hand, and struck the fuse of a small dynamite stick he'd kept since the mining days. "What are you doing?" she gasped. "Ending this," he growled. Before she could stop him, Jack ran toward the cave's mouth, the light of dawn cutting through the smoke. He threw the dynamite, dove behind a boulder, and the world erupted. The blast shook the ground, echoing through the hills as the men outside scattered in chaos. Clara screamed his name, but when the smoke cleared, Jack was there, alive but wounded, bleeding from his shoulder. She ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "You could have died," she cried. Jack winced, a faint smile tugging his lips. Wouldn't be the first time. "I did something stupid for someone worth saving." Clara pressed her forehead against his, her voice trembling. "You didn't even know me." "Didn't have to," he said softly. "You needed saving. That's enough." They rode again as the sun rose, the fire of dawn painting the sky in gold. Behind them, the mine collapsed, burying the men who'd come to kill her. Ahead, the plains stretched wide and endless, a new beginning carved out of smoke and courage. Clara looked back one last time, whispering through the wind, "Thank you." Jack glanced at her, eyes dark but gentle. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We've still got a long road to freedom." As they disappeared beyond the ridge, two broken souls carried a new story into the light, one written in blood, fire, and the quiet kind of love born in the middle of chaos.